Hello, I'm ATO and welcome. Today we are going to be building a very simple mobile app that can run on iOS and Android with React Native. This tutorial is very beginner friendly, so even if you have no knowledge on React Native, you can follow this tutorial along and build the mobile app. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So today we are going to be building this very simple and beautiful mobile app which can run on both Android and iOS. So it's a very simple calculator which features operations like addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. So let's just have a quick demo. Let's try the addition. If you want to add two numbers, 12 plus 12 equals to 24. You can cancel everything and have a clean canvas. If you want to do multiplication and combine it with addition maybe, and as you can see, it works. So let's get right into it. So the first thing we are going to do is to install the tools needed. So we are going to start by installing Node.js. So to install Node.js, let's just go ahead and tap install Node.js. Go to the website. You choose the version that is going to work for your operating system. In my case, I use Windows. So I can click on Windows and download it. I already have Node.js installed, but you just have to click on the installer when it's finished. So you just come here. When it comes, you click next. You accept the terms, click next, click next, click next, next, and you click install. I will not install it because I already have it installed in my PC. So the next thing you will do is to install Expo, the Expo command line. So we are going to start by installing Expo. To install Expo after installing Node.js, you come to your terminal or you can head over to the command line. You can do that by typing cmd and you open the command prompt. You tap npm install Expo CLI, and then don't forget to include the global so that it can be installed everywhere on your PC. So you click on enter and it starts installing. You wait for it to come to finish the installation before we can get right into it. I'm just going to speed up the video, then we'll get back when it finishes installing. Okay, so now that it has finished installing, we can close the command prompt here. Then we head over to VS Code. We open Visual Studio Code. If you have not downloaded Visual Studio Code, you can download it. It's not complicated. Just go to Google, tap download VS Code, and the first thing that appears, you follow the instructions and download and install VS Code. So we are going to open the folder where we want our app to be stored. So we are going to put open folder. I like it stored in tutorials. Select the folder. And then we open the terminal. You come up here to terminal, new terminal, and then we can now create our app. So we are going to create our app using the expo command. So we will say expo init, and we are going to call it calculator app. You can call it whatever you want. I've just chosen to call it this way. So we wait for it to create, or we are going to just go with a blank app. We wait for everything to install and we can get right into it. We can do, so after we had our app installed, we can either do cd calculator app. This is going to get us into the directory where the calculator has been installed, or we can just go here as I prefer doing. We look for where our app has been installed and we open it manually. So now we are inside the folder of the app. What we are going to do right now is to run the app. We'll use the expo start command. I already have an app running, so I'm just going to put yes here. Wait for it to run. And there we have our app running. So what is very interesting about developing your apps with Expo is that you can test it directly on your mobile app. We are going to demonstrate it right now. I am using an emulator, an Android emulator on my PC. But if you don't have Android Studio and if you don't want to install it, you can use your mobile phone. So what you want to do is that you want to go to the App Store or the Play Store, depending on which phone you have. If you have iOS, you go to the Play Store. If you have iOS, you go to the App Store. If you have Android, you go to the Play Store. So you come here to the Play Store, you search for Expo, then you install Expo. I already have Expo installed, so I'm just going to open it. If yours doesn't show here, you come and scan the QR code And all you need to do is just to scan this QR code. When you scan the QR code, now it's going to open the app on your mobile phone and you can start developing. Any changes you make on your code is going to show directly on your app. So this is very useful when developing apps. So now we can go straight into the development of the app. So I will be testing the app on my Android emulator. You can test your app directly on your smartphone, or you can install the emulator to get started. But we're not going to be installing the emulator in this tutorial. We'll do it in another tutorial. But just go ahead and run the app on your phone. It's still very fine. I prefer doing it on the phone because sometimes on the phone it just looks better than to run it on an emulator, but anyone works. So we are going to open our app.js. We see that we have our simple application, we have our simple code here, which just has a text showing open up app.js to start working on your app. So now we are going to open Expo on my Android emulator. So we're going to get rid of the text. We'll get rid of the text. We are going to leave the status bar. We might need it. We'll get rid of all this code here. So now we can get started. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to add a safe area view. So instead of adding the safe area view, we can just go ahead and modify our view here. If you're using VS Code to select both, you select the first one and tap on Ctrl D. So we are going to add a safe area view here. Then we are going to add the view. Then we are going to give a style to our view. So we give it a style, styles dot result container. Now let's go head over to our style here and add a result container. This style is going to make our app look good. So we come here and add a text. So we'll come here and add a text, and we say this is a text. We are going to see the changes directly in our app. So we can see it right up here. It doesn't look very good, but this is it right up here. This is a text. We see that our app is working. So now let's keep going. We are going to delete this text here. We will add something else. Let's add a style. We'll give it styles dot result container. Oh, sorry, result text. We'll give it style dot result text. Then we come here and we create the style result text. We are going to add the actual values later. Right now, let us first of all put everything together. So let's create a new view. This is going to be called input container. Now we are going to have the text input. We'll close the tag here. We'll come here. Inside our text input, we'll have a style. We'll give it a style. Let's call it input container. All these styles here, you can give it whatever name you want. I'm just giving the names that look more logical to me. Oh, sorry, instead of input container, let's give it input text because it has to be different from the container. So let's give it input text. Let's come here to the value. We'll give it a value input. Then we have to create a variable input here. We are going to use a React hook. So let's call it input here. Then the next thing we'll do is we're going to add unchanged text. We put the set input here. Then the keyboard type numeric because we only want numbers to be entered in our text input. We are going to add the numbers that we are going to use. So in the calculator, you have to have the numbers listed from 0 up to 9 with characters like the star character and the slash character for division, the plus character and the equals to character. So I'm not going to add the styles right now. We're going to add it later on. Let's first of all get everything going. So we have the button here. This is the button container. This is where all our buttons are going to be stored. So we are going to put it inside an array. So let's start with 7, 8, 9. So we are doing it in this order because we want it to start from 7, 8, 9, then division, then 4, 5, 6. So you see the typical way calculator apps are usually laid. So this is how we are going to do in this order. I'll go ahead and speed this part of the video. Now that we have entered everything, we are going to use the map function. The map function is used to traverse a list or traverse an array and display its values. So inside our map function, we'll have a callback function, and we're going to have item and index as arguments. Then a touchable opacity is used to give feedback to a button after it being pressed. So anytime you press something on your iOS or your Android phone, there's always like a little animation that happens when you press a button. So that's what touchable opacity does. It gives that little animation. So we are going to give it a style. Call it button here. On press. So this is the function that we are going to call a function every time the button is pressed. So the function is going to be called on button press. We will create a function in a moment. We are going to create a function in a moment. Let's first write it down here. Then inside here is going to be the text. The text is going to contain each and every one of these numbers we just put in our arrays. That is why we use the map function. So we don't need to display everything individually. The map function is just going to iterate the array and display everything one by one. So we can have the item here. The item here is going to represent each and every of these characters. So now we have our code ready. Now we can go ahead and start styling everything up. So for the styles, let's start with the container. We give it a flex of 1. Then we go to the result container. We give it a flex of 2. Then we justify the content. We put it to the center. We want everything to be aligned to the center. We align everything here, align the items, flex, and all of this is CSS. So you're going to get used to it with time. It's very important to practice these things over and over again to know what goes where, what does what, and when to put the particular property somewhere. So in the result text, we are going to have a font size of 40. Then we are going to come here, copy this input container here. We paste it here. Inside our input container, we are going to have a flex of 1. We are just going to go ahead and do the same thing as the result container. So let's come here. Let's copy this. We come here and we paste it. Then we go to the next style, that is the input text.
We have the input text.
We give it a font size of 30. The next style we have, is the button container. This is now going to be the interesting part where all of our buttons here are going to lie. So we have the button container here. Don't forget your column. Give it a flex of 7. A flex direction. Row. Flex. A flex wrap. Give it a wrap. And then now the next style we're going to have here is our button. So we come here, we copy, we paste. We give it a font size of 24. We give it a width of 25%. we'll give it a height of 20%. Oh, we have an error. Why? Oh, okay. Instead of putting 25%, I put %25. So let's go ahead and reload the app. Then we justify the content to center. As you can see, our app is already taking effect. You can already press the button, but they say on button press doesn't exist, and this is totally normal because we haven't created the on button press yet. So let's finish styling this, then we create the on button press. So something can actually happen when we press our button. So we add a border width of 1. We give it a border color of, we're going to give it like gray. It's going to be a light gray. Okay, you see it looks already so much better. Then the final style here is the button text. So we come here, button text, just go ahead and paste it. I will give it a font size of 24. As you can see, we have our calculator, we have our numbers. Now it's time to write the functions for our calculator to work. We don't have the on button press function, and that's what we need right now. That's why we see all these errors. So let's go ahead and add the on button press. So we are going to create a function. I like creating functions this way, but you can still create the function by saying function. Oops. You say function on button press. You can still do this, but I just like using the arrow function. So we are going to create an arrow function, put in the value here, and we can start creating our function. So the first thing is we are going to say if the value is equal to the equal sign, we are going to have our try catch function. We'll set the result to the input. Oops, this is not what I wanted to do. Set the result to the input. The next thing we have to do right now is to create a result variable, because we don't have a variable for the result. So we'll create a state, put here result, and then similarly to what we did for the input, we put set result. Then we are going to put in the use state. So after every try block, we have to have a catch block. So if any error occurs, we can handle the error and our app is not going to crash. So we are going to have error here. Then we set the result. If anything happens, if there's any error, it's going to display the error here instead of the value. The next thing we're going to do is that we're going to add an else if statement. If the value is equal to C, we want to cancel everything and have a clean canvas. So we're going to set the input to blank. So basically cancel just means that you're setting everything to an empty value. So we are going to set the input to an empty string or an empty character. Then we'll set the result to an empty character. Then if none of this happens, that is if you enter another button apart of the equals to sign and the C sign, you want to add the values. So you're going to have set input plus value, and there you have it. So you may be wondering how we are going to do to add, subtract, divide, all those things. So remember, inside the set result, we came and used the eval. The eval is used to evaluate an expression that results in a text or a numeric value. So if you have 525 plus 625, it's going to evaluate every character here and figure out what to do with it. So it's going to say, okay, since we have 525 here and there's a plus character here and 652, it's going to know that it has to add both. So if we had instead star here, it's going to know that you have to multiply both. So that is a very useful function in JavaScript, and it really facilitates the whole process. So the next thing we need to do here to get the result is we come here, we forgot to add the result here. We put results. So now we can see we are having the result here. So we can go ahead, we cancel this, put 25 times 20. It's going to give us 500. But now, as you can see, our text is a little bit down. We want to make it to occupy a big majority of the screen. So let's see how to do it. For that, we need to debug our code because the code doesn't work as intended. So now let's see if we made any mistake somewhere. Okay, so the mistake we did is that we put the view of this container right here, of this button container, inside this input container, whereas it had to be in its own independent container. So we're going to cancel this here, and we will put the view out of this container. So now we see it occupies the majority of our screen, and it looks way better. So now we can cancel everything. We can now use our calculator app we just created. So instead of using any other app right now, you can just go ahead and calculate with the app you develop by yourself. Doesn't that sound more exciting? So you can do multiplication, you can do division, and yeah, there you have it. So you can expand more on this app. You can make it more complex. You can change the style and make it more beautiful. You can add other operations like square root, power. Yeah, you can add a lot of mathematical operations on this thing. So just go ahead and play with it, make it more useful, add a lot of functionality, just so that you can practice and you can get better at it. Just go ahead and like and share it. It's going to be very helpful. And see you in the next tutorial.